connections are flowing and operating. So I'm Paul Wilson Jr. and excited to have you here if you are watching this live. All right. So, like I said, I am starting a live stream webinar, the fulfillment. Go live for just making sure all my audio and video is correct. So, welcome aboard to the fulfillment formula for purposeful work. I am your host and your facilitator, Paul Wilson Jr. I'm excited to be here with you to share these insights that I've been able to gather over, I'll say, a couple of decades worth of a life and, not more importantly, but life, but more relevantly, if you will, work experience and the journey that can be very a winding road, right, through one's career. And so just want to share some thoughts with you over the next maybe 30 to 40 minutes to give you some insights, especially again for those of you who are at different places in your career. Again, you could be on the rise, or maybe have dropped down, maybe a little bit further than you may have wanted to be right now, or you're transitioning maybe to a new place. But we'll get into all that as we move forward. For those again who are maybe getting newly introduced to myself, again, I've been 20 plus years in business strategy and coaching, 10 years plus as an entrepreneur. Many may be more familiar with the work I've done more recently in the local Atlanta entrepreneur ecosystem. But prior to that, again, I was a 10-year entrepreneur, three-time nonprofit executive, published author multiple times, business professor. Some may not know, I'm an ordained minister, also husband and father of four. So again, I've had a very full life and still living a very full life. But more importantly, I want to talk a little bit about my story. Again, some may or may not know, I did post a video a couple of weeks ago, and some may have seen that. But even if you didn't, I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version, but I definitely encourage you to go back and you can check it out on my YouTube page for that particular video. And I called it Rock Bottom to Global Business. And literally, it's been that, right? And so if I look at the beginning of my career, again, came out of college. I was on the West Coast, the University of San Diego. Was where I did my undergrad in supply chain management was my focus, which opened the door to me to get to Atlanta for my first job out of college. And of course, like many, right, the goal was to get to that corporate office, right? I was going to get to that C-suite corner office, and that was the path and that I desired at that particular time. But didn't work out quite like the way I wanted to. A little disillusioned with it, even how long it was going to take me to get there in that particular culture. And it was just one of those things that, you know what, I got a little antsy, but also I felt that I wasn't being fully utilized in my purposes and my talents. And I began to explore some other opportunities. And so that led to entrepreneurship. So launched out, started my own management consulting company. I was working really all over the country, working with corporations, helping them streamline their supply chain processes and systems and actually enhance their supply diversity programs. So it actually would create more business opportunities and contract opportunities for small women and minority owned businesses. And things were going really well until they weren't. Hence the the pathway that you see on the screen. And I'm gonna condense the story just a little for the sake of time, but business again was at a peak and then just literally almost felt like off the cliff. And this was back during the Great Recession. If you remember, 29, 10, 11, right through that time. Well, that had reverberating effects on my business. Ultimately, because I was holding on so tight to my dream at that time, ended up losing our home, right? We got foreclosed on, and it just led to several years actually of homelessness. And we were living in a extended stay hotel. Me and eventually my family was six people in that particular hotel. Well, not just one, actually, it was several. But by the time we got to the last one, it was six of us, right? And so, and I'm talking about mental and emotional and financial stress and pressure, and literally that was rock bottom for me. And it was hard to navigate and see anything really clearly at that particular time. But also had to have a few come to Jesus moments, if you will. because I really jumped out there believing that this was my purpose. My purpose was to start this business, to have economic impact, to transform communities. And we did a lot of good work, right? It had a lot of transformation and saw actually a lot of impact during that time. But how many of you know that sometimes things are for a season, right? And that particular season was coming to an end, and I didn't want to let go, right? And I refused because I felt like when the business fell, I felt like I was the failure. Although now I realize it wasn't me, it was the business, right? It was two separate things. But at that time, my identity was intertwined with the failure of the business. And again, and that probably led to a longer period of homelessness than probably maybe it had to have been, right? Just based on my mindset at that time. But again, couple of come to Jesus moments, some really significant people pouring into my life, including my pastor, some other key friends, helped to shift that mindset, and I began to enter back into the workforce. But here's the thing, I didn't lose my sense of purpose. So even as I shifted into that, I began to help a couple of jobs that I got initially was to help train other people, right, to enter into the workforce effectively, connected to their purpose, connected to the things that gave them passion. So the things that I was doing before, I was still doing it now, although again, it was in the context of a job, right? Versus being an entrepreneur, which had extreme value the people that I got to interact with. Well, I'm going to fast forward a little bit more. So things begin to progress very quickly. But my passion for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, I was able to connect that with eventually getting a role as a business consultant at the Small Business Development Center at Georgia State University. Well, that ultimately led within probably less than 2 years, about a year and a half, I got promoted to the director of the center there, and then eventually moved over to vice president at the Russell Center, and then vice president at the Urban League. And now, and within that space between the Urban League and the Russell Center, what it also opened up the doors. So I have a passion. I've had a passion probably since early 2000s to do business in Africa, and so that began to accelerate. So something I hadn't even thought about since probably 2006, 2007. The door opened back up in 2023, right, for me to basically have what started off as one project that led to several, to be in Uganda multiple times, to be in Zimbabwe, literally just last month in August, and then eventually even doing work in South America, in Colombia. And so the things that I thought were I was done with, that had no opportunity to pursue again in that homelessness, situation. Now all of a sudden I got a chance to get renewed and reinvigorated, but also a new sense of purpose as I grew through those experiences, as I traveled through those difficulties, and now the light bulbs right came on. And so ultimately, and I like to compare and contrast. So if you look at that picture at the bottom of the screen, if you can see it. So in 2017, right, I was actually teaching one of those job skill training programs. And this was actually a group of young adults. These were adults with special needs, right? And some, autism and Asperger's, depending on certain areas along that spectrum. So we're equipping them to be more self-sufficient. And again, I tell you, I probably learned more from them than I probably gave them. Just such an enriching and powerful experience. But I was still struggling, broke, and challenged in that situation. So although I had a sense of purpose, the profitability piece was not there. But fast forward just 6 years later, and I'm sitting at a table. Now, there are two different ambassadors from two different countries giving us a private briefing. And I was able to go down there with a group from the Russell Center. We took some entrepreneurs down to Colombia, a powerful trade mission. But part of that mission, we got invited to this private briefing with literally two ambassadors. And so if I compare and contrast 2017 to 2023. Again, in 2017, I never would have thought I'd been sitting at a table like that in 23. And so I talk about my story going from rock bottom to global business. And this really is the story of purposenomics, right? And how to live out your purpose. So let's talk about the big problem that many individuals have, that I had, that I struggled with, and some of you may be struggling with right now. So if we just look at national statistics, 70% of professionals right now feel disengaged at work. That number may be even higher just with the recent economic news that's happening and other so many changes that really just happened even since the beginning of this year. There's probably a lot more people not only feeling less engaged, but also probably less secure, right? If we're honest. But also, And that's the on the employee side. But we talk about also the entrepreneur side. There are many entrepreneurs who are hustling without fulfillment. And as a matter of fact, if you look at some of the numbers of entrepreneurship right now, in particular, I'm just mentioning one community, but this is really probably could be spread across many. But in African American community, between 95 to 98% of all small businesses in the African American community is one employee, which means that there are no other employees to share the work, to share the load, right? A lot of it we look at to share, yay, the success, but what about the failures, right? There's nobody to share that with either. And so many people are just chasing a paycheck because even the median income is somewhere between 40 to $50,000 again for the average business, small business, right, in the African American community. Again, we could talk about all the communities, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if those numbers are similar there too. So people, yes, are chasing the paycheck. But what about pursuing their purpose, right? What about pursuing your purpose? You may be asking yourself the question, I got the paycheck, but I'm missing the purpose. But I also say another part of this problem is people who have chased purpose and are missing now the profitability to go along with it. It's really a twofold piece that have to work together because like myself, I had the purpose and didn't have the profits, right? And ended up in a homeless situation. But you may be on the other side that you're feeling disengaged, disconnected, and anxious because yeah, you have the money, but the purpose isn't a part of your equation. So why does this matter? Right? Because work is not just the job. Really, it's our life, right? And I say that from the perspective of think about how much time over a lifetime we spend at work, right? And that time is time we can't get back, right? That time is time that is invested over time into things that hopefully have meaning, have impact. But at the end of your life, most people aren't going to say, "I wish I worked more." Right. I wish I had more hours to finish that project. Most people aren't thinking like that, right? When they're about to pass away, right? Or just reflecting on their lives. But I believe also that work, there is a divine purpose connected to work, right? Because work was the very first assignment given to Adam in the Garden of Eden, if I go biblical for a second, right? So work is honorable, right? Work is in and of itself, right? A redeeming aspect of even who we are. And I'm not saying work from a job standpoint. I'm talking about work in terms of when you can add value to something or people, right? Or an entity, right? When we talk about work in general, right? But unfortunately, there is this misalignment, right? Burnout, frustration, lost potential, all these things that happen to so many people in this process of our careers and our professions, right? And we're moving along this path. And unfortunately, right, when there's misalignment, we get the negative side of it. But on the flip side, right, when there is alignment, right, we get clarity, we get confidence, courage, and impact. All the things that make our work more fulfilling, that make it more desirable, that give us the energy and the drive and the push when our work is aligned with who we were created to be, who we are, right, and the things that we've been designed and called and created to do. And so, as I mentioned already, Purposenomics. So I released this book, Purposenomics: The Quest for Meaningful and Profitable Work, back in August. This is actually a re-release. So I initially actually wrote this book a couple of years ago, but with some new insights and some new perspectives. Now I decided to re-release it. And now even offering a master class to go along with it. But in particular, let's talk about Purposenomics for a second and this framework. And so a simple formula for Purposenomics is purpose times profit equals prosperity. It's a simple formula, but there's a lot of layers and there's a lot of depth right inside of that particular formula. And a lot of times we talk about prosperity, and in some circles that's a negative term, in other circles, right, it can be taken out of context. But what I'm talking about when I say prosperity, I'm talking about a holistic prosperity that is spiritual, but also it is financial. And don't want to shy away from that. There is a financial component, but there's also an emotional and relational components to prosperity. And so when we think about our work in the context of if I can tie in purpose and profit and get to, and that again tied together, driving prosperity, I get the benefit, right, of spiritual, financial, emotional, and relational. And again, I'm gonna go biblical again for you for a moment. 3 John 1 and 2 says, "Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in good health, even as your soul prospers." So that scripture speaks to, yes, there should be soul prosperity or spiritual prosperity, but there are other types of prosperity that we need to be looking at that from a holistic standpoint. And I truly believe with all my heart that there's a way to actually navigate to that place through again the work that we've been created to do, designed to do, purpose to do, right? And that we shouldn't have to do that and then have this lack of financial abundance, right? But even some people, like even if your perspective of financials, right, is just I just need enough. Okay, that's fine for you, but that may be a different definition for somebody else. But still, it should be profitable, right? Whether it's a lot or a little, should still be profitable. As right, the old saying says, it doesn't matter how much you make, it matters how much you keep, right? From that standpoint. And so I'm gonna just go through three quick insights that is connected to this formula of purpose times profit equals prosperity. And again, it starts with purpose. Purpose is the anchor. And I would even contrast purpose versus passion, because for me, a lot of times passion is that fire that burns bright, but oftentimes is not sustainable. So some things, for many people, passion is the thing we get excited about. Passion is the thing that gets us started, but purposes is going to be the thing that gets us going. So not that we don't need passion, but there's got to be a purpose that's connected to that energy, that drive, that excitement that we have that allows that to be sustainable. Because how many of you know anything that's purposeful and meaningful, even long term, every day is not a fun day. Every day is not an exciting day. It could be a meaningful day, right? It could be a significant day, but it's not like this high energy, right? That happens every single day, even when you're doing the thing that you love to do, right? That's why you have to just know that I'm in my purpose, even when it doesn't feel good, even when I'm frustrated, even when I may be angry, even when things aren't going well, I still have that purpose, right? And again, I need both purpose and passion, right? And so as you just reflect on this, and you may be in that searching space where you're saying, I don't know what, right, my purpose is. I don't know what I'm here for. Right? I don't know what I should be doing. And some of you maybe even be in a different season where maybe earlier in life you said you were really new. Hey, I'm locked into what I'm doing. But now it may be a little confusing, right? Maybe a little bit more ambiguous and you're trying to figure it out. So I'll just give you a reflection question that you can walk away with, right? So what problem did God anoint you to solve? All right. What problem that were you designed to solve? What problem do you have a burden for? It's another way to think about that. What do you have a burden for that you want to bring a solution to? And you believe you have a solution to bring to that. That's one way, right? Among several other, I'll say, steps in this process to begin to understand and grasp and appreciate what your specific purpose is. So again, purpose is the anchor. All right. So number two, purpose, right? Profit is a stewardship tool. So we talked about purpose is the anchor, but now profit is a stewardship tool. And so when we think about money, we think about profits and profitability, right? For in the context of what I'm talking about, this everybody may not agree with me, but in this context, money is not the mission of the business, but it is a multiplier of the mission, right? And then I would even say a force multiplier. So what is a force multiplier? Force multiplier basically is a military term, right? And it basically says with additional, let's say, personnel or weapons or even hardware, what we may have been accomplished in one context, now with the force multiplier, these additional resources, I may be now to be able to do 10x or 100x, right? So it's the things that multiply, expand, make exponential what that initial effort was. So that's what money does for your mission, right? That's what profits do, allows you to enable service sustainability and legacy. So many people, again, start out fast, even financially, they start out and then they run out of steam or they run out of money and the mission can't continue, right? And so you need both, right? You need your mission, your business, right? Your employment to be profitable, right? But as you manage those profits, as you manage that money, it allows that money to be a force multiplier for your mission, which basically means you can impact more people. You can reach more clients, the more revenues that you're bringing in. Again, when it's managed and stewarded properly, right? And again, the Bible speaks to this, right? Deuteronomy 8 and 18, for many may be familiar. God gives us the power to create wealth in order to establish his covenant in the earth. So again, money is not something we should be shying away from. It should be something that we're strategically attracting, right? Strategically managing and just strategically deploying so that our purpose and the mission, right, for our business or our employment is actually maximized, it's expanded, it's multiplied, right? And so that's why the two work together, purpose times profit, because profit and the financial side of it is the fuel for your purpose in terms of being able to expand, scale, right, multiply from that perspective, right? So hopefully I'm hitting home and connecting with you, and what I'm saying is making sense from that standpoint. So again, depending on what platform you're on, please feel free to drop a comment, drop a link. I don't know if I can see it right now, but I definitely check it out a little bit later. Again, depending on what platform you're on, but I'd love to hear from you, and just let me know. Hey, is this connecting? Does this make sense? And is it something that's benefiting you? As you're listening. All right, so let's just get to my last and third point for this, and I've already kind of covered this, but prosperity is holistic, right? And when we're talking about true prosperity, it's going to integrate our faith, our work, our impact. It's going to impact relation. It's going to integrate relationships, right? It's going to integrate even our emotional health, because again, if the thing we're doing and it's causing us extreme stress and health issues, and now we can't even enjoy the success or impact we're having, was it really worth it, right? Is that really the type of prosperity, right, that we want, the prosperity that actually takes us out, right? I don't think so, right? Or is making money creating such a burden on us that it's hurting our relationships? That's not the prosperity that we're looking for, right? That's not the fulfillment that we're looking for from that standpoint. Again, it's this level of prosperity is going to include peace of mind, right? It's going to include the relationships and then the legacy that we can leave behind. Well, again, we don't want you to leave before your time, but when it is time for you to go, that yes, you can look back and say, this is the impact we had, but also this is what I'm leaving behind that others can benefit from, but also continue to build on right after you're gone. Because we're all going to go, right? We just hope it's going to be longer down the line than sooner, but still, right? We want to make sure again that there's value that we leave behind from that standpoint. And again, it's not just the financial success that we're talking about. We're talking about whole life flourishing, right? And some of this may sound, the pie in the sky may sound, you know, impossible, right? Or very difficult. And again, I'm not saying it is easy to reach that place. And if I look back over my journey, that was a very hard journey, very tough journey, very unexpected twists and turns. But when you look back and see that a lot of the lessons that were learned along the way, right, were getting me to the place, right, where I needed to be, right, from that standpoint. And when I look at, the low place that I was in, right, the low place ultimately became a launching pad, right, because I got new insights there, I got new epiphanies, I got new learnings. I had to grow personally, right, spiritually and relationally in that way, and which is actually preparing me for future opportunities. It was preparing me for future relationships, right? It was preparing me to do things in the future that maybe if I hadn't had that type of experience. I even think about empathy, right? Now, my level of empathy for people who are navigating through this process is a lot different now than it would have been back then, right? Or say prior to, right? Prior to then, when my business was going well, things are going good. Sometimes we can kind of look at people and say, well, you just need to work harder, right? And it's easy to give them prescription for things if we haven't been through something yet, right? Because sometimes we don't understand the emotional aspect of what people are dealing with. But again, for me, I have a different level of empathy now because of you can say the same too for the things that you've gone through. Now, the level of empathy that you have for people who've experienced something similar, right? That what you have been able to pass through. So again, I wanted to share those three insights, right? To go back and say purpose is the anchor, right? And profit, right, is a stewardship tool. And then lastly, prosperity is holistic. So if any of this is connecting with you, the last thing I said, three insights, I'm gonna give you a bonus one, right? As it relates to this, is that the world needs you, right? The world needs you to thrive. The world needs you to be in purpose, right? I heard a gentleman say a long time ago that your dream, your vision, your business is actually an answer to somebody else's prayer, right? Something that somebody else needs. Now, with your skills, your talents, your abilities, your purpose, and you living that out, actually now is a benefit and a blessing to what somebody else needs, right? And that could be any type of need. I won't even go into that, right? But again, the world needs you. And when I even say the world, that could be your neighbor, right? It doesn't have to be somebody or on the other side of the planet. be in your neighborhood, could be in your community, could be in your state, your region, or maybe it is. Again, if part of your purpose is to do things in different parts of the world, yes, they're waiting for you, right, to be fully who you are and to produce, right, what's inside of you that they can benefit from. And then there's that mutual benefit. So again, there's that alignment again with your purpose. And again, it's also this shift from burnout and frustration to clarity and joy. And that doesn't, and when you have clarity and joy, it doesn't mean that everything is going well. It doesn't mean that everything is perfect, right? It doesn't mean that everything, right, is roses and rose petals, right? No, it just means that you have this sense of peace, right? You have this sense of direction, right? But you also have this sense of fulfillment that you're getting out of, again, fully coming into who you've been called to be and doing what you've been called to do. And then unlocking that potential that connects, right, your purpose, and then allows you to profit from it for a life that thrives, for a business that thrives, for a career that thrives, and ultimately for the community that you're called to reach, that they can thrive as a result of the investment that you're making into them, right, through your products and services and talents and gifts and all those beautiful things. All right, so I want to pause right there and basically that was kind of the recap and just what I wanted to share. But I want to actually invite you into an opportunity, right? It is the Purposenomics Masterclass. I want to give you a quick overview or preview of that. And again, first thing I have to ask is who is this for? Right. And if I had to kind of define maybe four kind of different types of people that this masterclass was designed for, one, it is the frustrated professional. You may be part of that 70 or 80% who are disengaged, disconnected, disillusioned, right? And any other dis I can add, right? That makes sense, right? You're that professional that things and again in this case doesn't mean that you aren't financially well off, but it could be that you haven't found that sense of purpose or impact or meaning in the work that you're doing right now. Again, that could be an employee or an entrepreneur. Maybe you're a purpose seeker, right? Maybe again, not that your career's off the path, but you're just trying to say, there's more in me and I haven't tapped into it yet. And I'm trying to figure out what that is. I'm trying to figure out what that purpose is, what I'm designed for, what I was created for. So then I can begin to, right, navigate to the place or position that fits who I am. Or you're the career transitioner. Maybe you have had an unexpected change to your trajectory, right, or the path that you're on, and or maybe it's just time. You sense that I've accomplished certain things in my career. Now I'm ready for something new, ready for a new challenge, a new opportunity, and I want some clarity and direction on that. Again, so whether it was planned or unplanned, it's that person in transition, maybe from a corporate to entrepreneurship, or maybe it's from entrepreneurship to corporate, right, or maybe it's from corporate to corporate, right. It's that transition time, but you just feel like you're in that in between space, and now you're looking for direction. And then next, it's the aspiring entrepreneur. And I would say it's the entrepreneur who wants to build something again that is more than just the financial aspect, but you want to have impact with your business. And some would call that a social enterprise, right? Or social entrepreneur. And if that's where your heart is, that's where your desire is, again, this would also be for you, the aspiring entrepreneur. So which one are you? Which one actually fits you in terms of someone who you believe that you could benefit from getting immersed in a process such as the Purposenomics Masterclass. And this is a live masterclass. So it is starting October the 9th. Right, so this will be weekly, basically for 3 weeks in a row. It's a 2-hour session on Zoom, basically. And these are the 3 weeks that we're going to be covering. The first one is discovering your purpose. Week number 2 is monetizing, right, your purpose. And so let me back up for a second. So on discovering your purpose, a couple things, right, that we're going to go through, right, is understanding the purpose-profit connection, identifying your core values and strengths, the Purposenomics framework introduction, and overcoming the false dichotomy of purpose versus money. All right, so that's going to be week number 1. Week number 2, we're going to be talking about monetizing your mission, which we're going to cover the 4 principles of Purposenomics. Those core principles: creating value-based income streams, market research for purpose-driven ventures, and then building your personal brand around purpose. And then the last week number 3, is sustainable transformation, which is basically going to cover transition strategies from corporate to purpose, building financial security during change, creating systems for long-term success, and measuring impact and profit simultaneously. So those are the 3 weeks. That's the content that's going to be happening during each of those particular sessions. But there's more, right? So within the context of this, basically you will get a digital copy of the Purposenomics book. You also have a purpose assessment tool that's basically a purpose gap assessment that'll show you again after you kind of go through the process of, hey, this is where my purpose is, to then be able to say, okay, well, this is where I am today, and then what's that gap, and what's the strategy to be able to close that gap. We also have a 90-day implementation workbook. So we'll start on the workbook during those three sessions. But again, you can't the transitions and transformation we're talking about here is not something that can happen in a few hours, right? It really is for many maybe a lifestyle change or a life change of direction. And so it's going to take a little bit longer. So the workbook that you're going to receive basically is a 90-day implementation plan that is going to also create a transition strategy for those again who need to transition. Also, this is going to be a private community that's created that you'll have access to myself, but also to the other learners, right? And other people who are going through this journey together. So you don't have to do this alone. We'll be able to journey on this together. You'll get actually lifetime replay access. So even if you can't attend a live session, don't let that stop you from coming. Because again, once you get access, once you register for the program, you will actually get plugged into the online community that will have not only the courses, but all the resources that are available, including an ebook that I wrote, Eight Kingdom Keys to Business Growth. It's an ebook that I also will be included in this course. So you see, there's a lot that's packed in here. And again, it's those three live sessions, but again, it's an ongoing engagement beyond that that also includes some one-on-one coaching from myself. All right, so what's the value of what we're talking about here? Right now, $197 is the early bird special, right? After tonight, October 1st, actually October 1st, right? I'll just say that because depending on when you're watching this, October 1st is the final discount deadline to get $100 off. So otherwise, this will be 297 on October 2nd. That's probably an easy way to say it. 197 now, 297 on October 2nd. But in order to get this $197 price, there is a discount code that you will have to put in because if you go to the site now, of course, it's going to say 297. So you got to make sure you get your early bird discount code for 197. And so with all this value that is being put in here, and if you think about right, what is the value to you to change your career? What is the value to you to change your trajectory, to change the path that you're on, to shift into a place where it's not just about profit or not just about purpose, but you can combine the two together, right, and have the prosperity, that fulfillment, that engagement, that connectivity that all of us really want, right, out of the work that we do from that standpoint. And so my last question is, why stay stuck? Right? Why stay where you are? Your work is more than a paycheck. It is a calling, right? But you have to get to the right kind of work for that to be a reality and not just wake up tomorrow and say, oh, the job I'm in, I'm gonna make it my calling. Now, for some, that may be true, but for many, I suspect that it is not true, right? And so, what's your transition plan? Now, if you have a better one, I'd love to hear it, right? And you could. I'm not saying that you don't. You could, but for many people, don't because they haven't thought through it at that level of detail from that standpoint. So again, you don't want to just exist, right? You were created to thrive. You were created to live a fulfilling, abundant life. And again, I don't just say that flippantly. I really believe that that's part of the promises, right, that we've been given by God from a faith perspective to live an abundant life. And again, that doesn't mean it's a problem-free life, but it is a life that's built on purpose, a life that is built on a foundation of peace and the joy and fulfillment that you can get, and you're excited about getting up on Monday morning, right? To do the work that you've been designed to do, and yeah, not just Monday morning, but every day, right? From that standpoint. So also, just want to invite you, those again who have not had a chance to get their free preview copy. And again, you can get this whether you sign up for the masterclass or not. All right, give you a chance to actually get exposed to Purposenomics. Give you a chance to get introduced to it. So this is a free preview copy. So just go to paulwilsonglobal.com /ebooks, and you can download that and start reading. And again, those of you again who don't want the masterclass but don't want the book, of course, you can actually buy the full book there too. But this preview copy, which is the first couple of chapters, is actually free. And then the if you want to get the ebook, you actually can go to that site also. So I'm going to close out with this. Let's move forward together. I again being able to get to a place in my life and my career where I can say I'm fulfilled in the work that I'm doing. Right, I'm passionate about it. I'm driven about it. I'm focused about it. I got more creativity of things, more that I want to do. But I also can look back and see when I wasn't in that place, and be able to connect the dots. So I want to be able to help you connect the dots too, to transition to the place and to the point to where you are living a fulfilled, prosperous, and transformed life. So let's do that transformation together. And I love to be your tour guide. I love to be your coach. I love to help you navigate through that process. So again, by October 1st, I said 9:30. Go ahead and jump on it tonight. Maybe a few extra hours in there tomorrow, but don't take that chance, right? So $197 early bird special. Again, use the code EB197 when you check out, and that's the QR code for you to do that. So, with that, I'm actually going to sign off, and I hope this has again been beneficial for you. I hope it's been helpful as you navigate through this next season of your life and your career and or business, and that all that you are doing is meaningful, is purposeful, and profitable, and that you're finding the fulfillment that you desire out of your work life. And if you're not, I'm the guy you need to come see. All right. Have a great rest of your day. And I look forward to connecting and engaging with you online soon. Take care.